I should probably introduce you to our listeners here.
Why not?
Bill Teator from Campaign for Saratoga 250. I'm going to say it this way, and it's the wildest thing to me, but America's got a big birthday coming up, right? And I don't know that everyone really understands how big that birthday is.
It's true. I mean, we're trying to do our part.
Yeah.
Communities across the country have formed various 250th commissions, but I got to say, Saratoga, with a huge hat tip to our county leadership, had the vision since 2021, really, to make this what it should be, a real reflection, a real commemoration of all the varied people and the places in our backyard that shaped America's founding. And our big birthday is coming up, and we commonly celebrate it as the 4th of July. But it really was, a lot of years leading up to it, which have already been being commemorated in New England, where arguably the ignition of a revolution was sparked. But it's places like Saratoga, who our big 250th anniversary is the Battles of Saratoga next year, 2027. So we like to say this birthday absolutely is gigantic, incredible hallmark in world history, setting out a course of self-determination here in America. But really declaring your independence is just that. It's well thought out for sure and well founded, but then you had to fight for it. So it's just the start, really. This birthday for a lot of America, we'd like to encourage people to think of it as just a start of reflection and commemoration on what made our nation possible. And it's places like victory at Saratoga's battles that proved the ideas in the Declaration could stand. It's our victory here in our backyards for those of us in the greater capital region, Adirondacks, all of New York State, really. It's the kind of victory that occurred at Saratoga that told the world. It made our rebellion a worldwide, at the time, global conflict among powers, and attracted needed allies like France, the Netherlands, others to America's cause, and really led to eventual true independence. A treaty 7 years from this birthday in 1783 is what finally secured the United States of America.
It's wild to me when I think about it, about the people that put their name on the Declaration of Independence. Like, realistically, it wasn't just like signing a piece of paper. I mean, it was putting their life on the lines. Like, they either had to win or they were going to be put to death. Like,
absolutely.
There was no other option about it.
Yeah.
So when I think about the Declaration of Independence, to me, I'm just like, man, like the bravery that would go in, the courage that would go into putting your name on that piece of paper.
Yeah, now that we're truly telling a largest, more arguably most powerful empire that we've tried, and we're breaking up. We're over you now. Yeah. And then not only that, they knew, again, when you declare that definitively, that you're putting your whole life and your family and everybody that supports you in harm's way. What's interesting and been really enjoyable for me, honestly, is I love history. I come from a place where I like to be involved in cause-based missions like this. And again, such a hat tip to the Saratoga 250 Commission, the board members that volunteer all their time with our campaign for Saratoga 250, and volunteers that turn out, and attendees at our events. It's so fun to see the pent-up demand for a reflection period on things like you just noted about our founding era and what we learn and still trying to improve upon. I think people are very, very interested, and we've been fortunate to see a lot of like our multimedia strategy manifest itself in people coming to live events, and live programs because they feel moved by the history, or they want to learn more, and they want to, have a pride of place in our backyard again, where a lot of the more significant, battles we've discussed occurred. But beyond that, people were not always patriots, even though a lot of those brave souls had thought and considered a form of governance and to break up with the monarchy and Parliament in Britain at the time. A lot of New Yorkers didn't, agree with that at the time. And all over the colonies, there were, arguably a third of loyalists or royalists that still supported the crown. And, we all like to feel, of course, we would be patriot. But, if you were here sending furs or growing crops and feeding your local family under that rule, it's hard to throw all that away too for an idea.
Yeah.
So you're right. The folks who really had definitively made that determination and met in a couple of continental congresses and decided to send that declaration after many attempts to make up, and say, hey, let's figure this out and work together. They really were remarkable because they did give all type of energy and effort to continue that partnership, if you will, between Britain and the colonies.
And some of those people had really, quote unquote, good lives. You know what I mean? Like
sure.
they were not just risking their lives, they were risking everything.
Yes.
And they could have very well have just stayed comfortable where they were and gone along to get along to continue to live the lives they were living. But
It's true.
They saw a greater idea. And, like it's amazing.
Yeah, and the one thing I think that I've loved to talk to people about is like, we are 250 years plus in, if you go back to, again, where the ignition was kicked off, largely in New England, and a lot of the, those areas have already celebrated remarkable 250th commemorations of the Boston Tea Party and shots heard around the world. And, the British, sending very intimidating forces into the land, from Boston up to Lexington and Concord, and shots being fired, deaths. That was a heck of a spark. But again, I think we kind of look at the word revolution in relation to America 250 years later and kind of treat it like cliche. Like, yeah, that was always going to happen. That was always meant to be. Not really. To your point, people had a lot staked out. They're living their lives. They're, struggling and working in much different conditions than we enjoy today. Arguably and sincerely on the backs of their initiative and ideas. They were risking it all. To your point, so it's not cliche when we talk about it was revolutionary. This wasn't just meant to be and manifested without a lot of consideration and time and yes, absolutely other good fortune interwoven with some folks who decided, this is worth looking at what's been done over the course of human history and deciding there's a way to self-govern and self-determination that respects inherent liberties.
And those liberties that we still enjoy today.
Correct.
And that most of us take for granted. But there's so many things about our lives that came directly from that Declaration of Independence.
Absolutely.
250 years ago and still stand very strong.
Yeah. And that's, again, one of the great things about being involved with something like this. It's a chance to really, think about those things again, reconnect with them, put ourselves in their shoes a little bit. And again, variety of perspectives, shoes.
Yeah.
And understand it gives you a lot of context on, your life today. And hopefully it'll give people a chance to pause and think about, this isn't an accident. It is something that has to be maintained and people have to be vested in your country, and preserving a republic, takes people's energy and effort. That's part of what those founders ended up seeing not many years after Saratoga or after the Treaty of Paris in 1783. They were convening again to come up with a better way to govern, because it was pretty rocky, road as a new country too.
Yeah.
So they really actually incredibly went back to work, back to studying history that they, revisited to come up with the Constitution and this form of state and federalism and, multiple branches and checks and balances. I mean, it's all so carefully orchestrated and we benefit from that.
Every
It's
day.
great to remind folks. Yeah.
Yeah. And the fact, to your point too, like it is something that there's no perfect system, right? And it has to be revisited and refined, but also like, I don't know, not strayed too far away from either, right? It's easy to forget the reason for something and just focus on what's not working instead of why it did work.
Yeah. And this, again, gives us a chance to do that, I think, as a nation. So, even if some areas it seems like or may feel like, maybe the commemorations aren't as loud, again, in Saratoga, we're doing our part and really, trying to do everything from video and, steady content that produce historical facts, but also connected to the 21st century. And, we're producing things like, the Saratoga Revolutionary Experience, which is really something we're excited about. I wanted to talk to you about some more. Michael, I know you know about it, but like it's a website currently. It's the URL, long mouthful, Saratoga Revolutionary Experience. But, you know, we wanted to tell people what it is. It's a place to land, and you can look at curated guides on how to access the history right here in our backyard, sites to go to, but then match it with our incredible hospitality. And one thing I love that you do, you know, through this program, through buying local, you know, is highlight entrepreneurs. We have an incredible hospitality sector, as we all know, in our region. So Saratoga Revolutionary Experience is our effort to say, even beyond this 250th commemorative period, this heritage has lived here. It is a appealing destination draw for both locals, drive time travelers, and even travelers across the country, or certainly into places where a lot of Europeans have roots, you know, in the revolution and in Saratoga's fight. So that platform gives you a chance to check, you know, say, hey, I got an afternoon. I want to see what I could do with my family. Well, there's a guide for you. And it matches you with, you know, stop with kids at Stewart's Ice Cream, or, you know, go but grab, you know, something at a local brewery, you know, afterwards, and round out the whole experience and make it a fun, edutaining, you know, trip. So that's a big part of it. And the other fun multimedia sort of content that we're creating will live in an app under the same name. Version 1.0, so to speak, already exists on both Apple and Google Play Store, called Saratoga Revolutionary Experience. And that allows you to choose currently from about 10, you know, directly connected heritage sites to the revolution in Saratoga, and takes you there turn by turn, of course. But while you're going, you're getting audio storytelling, you know, some in the voice of figures of history, some about the landscape and the ground that really shaped why these fights happened in Saratoga. And then we're going to continue to release what's called augmented reality, that at each site, eventually by next year, we're on pace to produce like simulated 3D moving figures of history, or portrayals of some of the remarkable events that happened at a site. And you use your smartphone. You know, they're not going away anytime soon, as much as it may frustrate us. We'll direct you on site to a location where you can launch a 3D simulation. The Baroness, this great story of Lady Riedesel, talking about her experience leading into surrender as the wife of the German commander on the British side, and, you know, becoming a prisoner of war with 3 kids. You know, we'll have, you know, stories from Henry Knox, who came here before the Battles of Saratoga, and his 250th of his expedition from Fort Ticonderoga to bring 60 ton of cannon all the way out to Boston, you know, to force the British out of Boston, rolled right through here. So we have a site where we'll have him talking, and on and on. We're going to just keep releasing, hopefully, that kind of content that will, the 21st century era digital native young people and families with kids will find entertaining and informative.
Well, I think that's one of the cool things about what you guys are doing too, is you're not just telling the story from the standpoint that we've always heard it and seen it, is that you guys are really looking at different perspectives, whether it's the children's book that you did and looking at it through the eyes of a kid, or if it's coming from like the wife that you were just talking about, from because it wasn't just, you know, those 5 figures in history that we read about all the time that had an impact or had a story to tell, and start seeing it through the eyes of all these different types of men, women, kids, adults. It's really cool.
Yeah, great point. And to emphasize that again, great kudos to the Saratoga 250 Commission, led by our county historian Lauren Roberts and her team of living historians, which make our live events incredible. Folks that portray civilians, portray obviously patriots from various regiments, be they Continentals or militia, portray British regulars that were here in the 24th of Foot, and portray Loyalists or Royalists. You know, a lot of them who, like, again, were a good portion of the society at the time. We really made it a point to bring out relatable perspectives. You can all put yourself in various people's shoes. You know, you're conscripted in Britain at the time from Ireland and sent over as a regular as a kid, essentially, or 18 if you're lucky. There were a lot of younger than that folks on both sides in the Battles of Saratoga. tragically. But yeah, we made it a real priority to continue to try and bring out relatable points of view, so it does resonate with more people. And the goal with the youth outreach, be it some of our own content or partners that we love seeing the inspiration from other content producers or authors, artists, we want to still see more artists and the like come forward, inspired by maybe this renaissance, if you will, of awareness, to say, yeah, we want to put some imprint on it that we think will connect this heritage to the future. Our goal really is educate, promote, and preserve this heritage. And we think by having those sorts of media, but more importantly, those relatable personas or perspectives brought to life, that can spark something with, a teenager or a 5 or 6 or 7 year old's earliest memories for 50, 60 years, God willing, for them. Yeah. So that's really what's amazing. That's the great fun about being involved in something like this, and it's cause-based, and you have those clear North Star objectives. We really are trying to stand on the shoulders of the folks who were involved in the fight, to the folks 50, 100, 150, 200 years after that did their part to get us here, where we are.
To keep us going.
A lot of people we all know and love in our lives still remember the Bicentennial very clearly, and another insanely mesmerizing thing to me that the county historian and her team brought out was sort of the historiography of commemorating this battle. The 150th anniversary had like 100 some odd thousand people come out, out to the battle sites, and just for pageantry and commemoration and celebration in various forms of the day. 1927, that many people. It was reportedly the largest upstate New York single gathering until Woodstock in 1969.
No kidding.
Pretty amazing. No Northway. Not everybody even had cars.
Right, 1927.
Yes.
I mean, there's definitely some walk-ins, some horse and buggies.
Yeah. They were, it was so cool because, honestly, because it was limited types of infrastructure and travel, they were, kind of stuck there for days, Once you got everybody into this, remote site in beautiful Saratoga County's eastern part of the county, which is still, you could see the landscape almost as it looked at 1777 at the battlefield. They were there for a while, having to get their way back out after they got there. But that's how big a deal this history was in America. I can imagine that. So here we have that opportunity to take, the means that we have of this era and hopefully spark that kind of awareness for another, 50 years. And stack the legacy, so to speak.
Now, can we just touch on, for people that maybe are unaware, the important role that Saratoga Springs and the Battles of Saratoga actually played in that war? Because we drive around and we see monuments and and then there's parks and there's different things, but it's I don't know if even I realized until getting involved with you a few years back that of what a influential role Saratoga and the Battle of Saratoga, like what it had on the Revolutionary War.
Well, boy, you're speaking our language, so thank you for that. Yeah, the Battles of Saratoga occurred in what was called the Saratoga District of Albany County. And Albany, who, again, all of our our listenership primarily, although this could go anywhere in the world, they know where Albany is and the state capital today, etc. And we call ourselves the Greater Capital Region, some of us are. But yeah, Albany County covered all of that, basically. And then the district was Saratoga. And out by what's now the town of Saratoga in the eastern part of the county, button up against the Hudson River in Schuylerville, and south to the town of Stillwater. Those existed, as places. Saratoga Springs did not exist, was not incorporated, was not a city at this time. So it was really, these battles occurred based on the advance of General Burgoyne and his army, with the aid of others, natives and Germans at the time, traveling down in the thousands from Canada, right following Lake Champlain, following the Hudson River Valley, ended up here largely because of that geography, trying to support logistics, using waterways, of course, following what natives and animals had followed, for millennia before that, right? So they're advancing, and the goal, was to get to Albany and sort of split New England, where the hotbed of the rebellion had occurred, and the British read on it at the time was still those are really the rabble rousers, throughout New England. If we kind of isolate them and separate New York and some of the trade from the Mohawk Valley with a lot of royalists or loyalists and into the port where the British in this case already took New York and Long Island and controlled the harbor, that we would isolate the real rabble, so to speak, and then be able to snuff out this revolution. This is 1777, only a year in from the birthday, right? So we may have declared independence, but it was not looking like we were going to be free.
It was far from
they had already taken New York and the harbor. They're sending a full army down from, Montreal, essentially straight down the Hudson Valley. They're sending others down the St. Lawrence Sea Valley to come from the west to the east and pinch us off. And that was all happening in summer of 1777. And again, if you look at the state of play at the time and you were like a Kalshi market or something existed then, we would have been very low chances of being a nation.
2%.
So that's what was really at stake. Like, we had a very little chance. And, France and others were all sitting on the sideline. They may have, had some supporters like, Lafayette as a teenager at the time, and others trying to send us one-off shipments, but there was no full alliance. So yeah, everything was at stake. Back to your point about what people had put pen to paper and declared, who had a lot to lose, and everybody who would join the fight, was staking their claim against all odds. It arguably, leading into the summer campaigns that the British planned, could have been over. So Saratoga, it's not hyperbole to say, saved the revolution by the way Burgoyne got, outmaneuvered ultimately. He got hemmed into landscape that existed here with high ground at Bemis Heights, near the Hudson River, where, General Washington was dispatching resources. Like, one of my favorite stories that we're going to bring more out for people in our region, especially today, is Kosciuszko, a Polish immigrant who just was inspired by liberty. He wasn't from a wealthy class. He paid his way over here, found the founders, was a smart guy. He's an engineer ultimately. They checked him out and they're like, yeah, this guy's legit. He knows what he's talking about. He became, a favorite of General Washington. They sent him up here. He spotted where to sort of position the armies, to pinch off the British. They spent a week or so just getting redoubts built. And, meanwhile, Burgoyne had gotten overextended from his logistics and supplies, had skirmishes, including the Battle of Bennington nearby for listeners and viewers. That was like a turning point of the turning point battle, where they lost. Natives were like, wow, this isn't going great. Allied natives of the British, and they took off. So he was starting to lose forces, lose supplies, and still pressed on. Just maybe arrogance, right? Like, we're the British Army. We're still going to get through here.
And the rebels are just a bunch of...
Yeah, exactly. So our armies rallied, militia rallied from New England, and it was the first time we really ended up with significant more numbers as his dwindled and Americans surged, changed hands from General Schuyler to General Gates. But Schuyler really contributed a ton of knowledge, a ton of slowing down Burgoyne's advances after they took fights for Ticonderoga. He slowed them down, so we were able to get position, and then had numbers and 2 significant battles. That's another thing people don't necessarily know. It was not like a one and done day fight in the field. There were 5+ weeks kind of positioning around what is currently Schuylerville to Stillwater, and having a distinct first battle on September 19th that had a lot of casualties on both sides, but more so, like almost 2-1 on the British side. And they held the field, so technical win, but really they didn't advance anywhere. They were still, everybody was dug in. All led to another battle on October 7th, the second battle called Bemis Heights. The first battle, Freeman's Farm, was at literally farm ground. That's preserved as part of the battlefield today. And then Bemis Heights, called after the heights that, Kosciuszko and the army saw as a ground to seize. And Benedict Arnold actually was a huge patriot in that fight, and arguably the hero of Saratoga, and could have been an all-time American hero if he didn't later betray his country and his brethren. But he led a heroic charge, got shot through the riding boot, crumpled under his horse, but people all acknowledged in real time, history and writings, he really rallied the troops, and they, Bemis Heights became a decisive victory. And that led to 10 days of siege surrounding Burgoyne and his really depleted forces under rain, stuck in mud, little to eat. And they finally had to negotiate terms of a surrender, which became called the Convention, a convention agreement with General Gates. On October 17th, 1777, that formal sword surrender happened. There's ground, part of the federal park system right off Route 4 out there, and you can go see it, but also a place that we're excited to bring to life with a physical hub that's under development right now called the Saratoga Revolutionary Experience. It'll be the physical hub with those additional other things I talked about online and an app. That's at what's known as the Field of Grounded Arms, currently a municipal village of Schuylerville, Fort Hardy Park. And that's where regulars and British forces marched between. Americans literally laid down, grounded their arms, largely muskets, Brown Bess muskets. And so, yeah, right in our backyard, places you can still go put your feet, imagine, you can see landscapes and hear these stories through the incredible work of the Saratoga National Historical Park and the Park Service at many of these locations. And then things we're continuing to add and augment with community support, incredible support through not just the county, but throughout the towns of Saratoga, Stillwater, the village of Schuylerville. Excited to see more and more of us, make our ways out there and reconnect with that landscape and these stories, the ones you just mentioned that maybe people didn't know enough about.
Well, and so to kind of put it into context, because Gates won, what happened if he didn't win? Like, where do things go from there?
Oh, a lot of people smarter than me have hypothesized about that for centuries.
Yeah.
Writers and historians, and it's actually kind of fun thing. Probably it's maybe an activity we should figure out.
Sort of thought exercise.
But yeah, I mean, if they didn't stop them there, I mean, arguably they just continue on down to Albany. At least it's October. The armies famously camp out for winters and plan battles for spring and summer. There's a distinct season to these things. So they would have occupied and connected up and down that flowing lower Hudson, to New York Harbor, which they already controlled. And you can imagine that, all of New York and the lands to the west, would a ripple effect across, allies and settlers. And, maybe everybody was sort of hiding out as patriots and now a lot more loyalists. I mean, you can imagine it. And it's hard to envision success after that if there was a defeat at Saratoga.
If they've been defeated.
They'd already at the same time, real quick point, at the same time, and again, communication didn't travel necessarily quickly, right? It's horse speed. So at the same time, Howe had departed New York Harbor and took Philadelphia. So they had already won, the British took our capital in Philadelphia. So they not only had they controlled the biggest harbor, or one of the biggest, Boston, they had already left, but they were in New York now, and now they had taken Philly while this campaign in the north in Saratoga was going on. So when Washington gets word, and the rest of folks get word that Saratoga was a victory and a decisive one, the first ever full British field army surrender in conflict, that was heralded. And the Congress at the time and declared it a national day of Thanksgiving in December of 1777, large degree and tributes in the writings of the time to victory at Saratoga, a national day of Thanksgiving. It was that big a deal locally. By the time the word got to France in February, where Benjamin Franklin and others have been trying to, he's a charming and intelligent and well-known guy throughout the world at the time, couldn't get them on board fully. But when that news got in, whole new game and a lot of leverage.
And that's what I was going to ask. Wasn't there relationships with allies that ended up coming to our aid that because of that victory?
Yeah, absolutely.
That it had a huge impact on it. Yeah. And had it not been a victory, would they have joined?
I don't know. I mean, they hadn't to date. It's hard to imagine they would have taken a leap if we lost another army up here. They've lost the capital city. They only controlled New York Harbor. I don't know. I doubt it. But no, to your point, very good point. Succinctly, what was significant about this? Well, the first decisive victory over a British field army really creates a lot of morale boost, right? At a time when we were losing Philadelphia and already lost New York. It absolutely ignited a belief not only in the colonies and among, Patriot Americans, but it extended across to French and Netherlands who were a big lender, to our cause. And even, they became straight up allies, after Saratoga.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitive in its global impact. It took what was largely a rebellion in a given set of colonies and made it a global conflict among powers.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's
really
Saratoga. That's a great, thanks for asking that and bringing me back around to like just sum it up succinctly, because that is so important that people really do appreciate, and especially who are anywhere in our region or anywhere that support and want to learn more about what it took to really secure victory and our independence. There was possibility because of, the thoughtfulness of the declarers and founders that, represented people in those congresses, but it was proven when people were out winning decisive battles like at Saratoga.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how different the world was because of all of it.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, this leads to, again, we all kind of treat it like cliche and think it's just taken for granted.
Yeah.
It's, fait accompli. Far from it. It's not really ever been in the course of human nature that there hadn't been some other sort of form of government that was revolving around human control of others. This was on its head, inherent liberties of the individual and consent of the governed, and limitations on powers. I mean, that is revolutionary.
Yeah.
And yes, to your point, after victory at Saratoga in large degree inspires, that fight to continue and become more supported after we secure a nation, after we have a constitution and, all the flourishing prosperity that's resulted from people pursuing their own systems, within the confines of consent of the governed. That's how we have what we have today. And it's how so many other people in the nation, in other nations, were lifted up when those forms of government changed. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what's cool.
It's so
commemorate.
Cool. Yeah. And we should.
Yeah.
I know we're getting short on time, Bill, but what else are you guys have for initiatives right now that we want to talk about? Because I know that you have quite a few.
Yeah, no, great. Thank you for that. So Saratoga Revolutionary Experience, I covered. It's a current web domain. If you're thinking, man, I want to take my kids, I'm a young adult and I'd like to go hike or bike. It's beautiful to do that at the battlefield, the Saratoga National Historical Park. So empty nesters, early retirees, you want to get your walks in. There's a wonderful season to do that. Those are things you can find and plan at SaratogaRevolutionaryExperience.com. Live events. So check out Saratoga250.com for all kinds of facts like the history we just talked about. But events page, our events have become more and more popular. We have a series of things in and around the Declaration of Independence commemoration in various communities throughout the county. We are the main promotional partner of Saratoga Racecourse this July 3rd and 4th. There'll be a giveaway co-branded, for a fun little tumbler with our, brand right here on it with the ubiquitous Saratoga Racecourse brand. So that's just fun. Exactly. That's just a fun thing to do. There's readings of the Declaration on dates in July because obviously speed of horse. People only started hearing about it days and weeks and months arguably later. So we have a couple of those into July. Lauren Roberts, again, chair, and her team and clothier and the historians will be active at the Saratoga County Fair, which is July 21st through 26th. And then most of all, I want to say there's a really cool opportunity June 30th at Universal Preservation Hall in Saratoga Springs. National travel show host Darley Newman had shot an episode called Revolutionary Road Trip Saratoga a couple of years ago, and it's aired all over 95% of PBSs all over the country. 90 some odd times in the top 10 markets in America. This show's aired, and it's a great explanation of this history and the hospitality that you can enjoy here.
Nice.
So she's back because she wrote a book now that's releasing June 30th nationwide, and she wanted to do her release launch here with us. So June 30th, very affordable way to kick off your leading into your 4th of July. $20, under $20 at a beautiful venue. Lauren Roberts from our Saratoga 250 leadership will be there sneak peeking our big 2027 commemorative plans. So come there, be among the first to know, straight from our Saratoga 250 chair, Lauren Roberts, who had a great rapport with Darley. So they're going to hold their own panel. We'll have some special music there from Cassandra Kubinski, who's a Billboard charting singer-songwriter. And a really neat event, actually, leading into the 4th of July. So I just wanted to preview that. And I will say Lauren will do it more justice at June 30th event, and you'll hear a ton more about it leading into this victory season, which is September and October when the battles occurred. You'll hear a lot more about what we're going to do this fall. We always have Columbus Day weekend, living historians out around Fort Hardy Park, Schuylerville. So plan for that. Mark your calendars. And then mark them for 2027, because that's the weekend when we're going to have 2 full-scale battle reenactments out near the battlefield. You'll hear a lot more about it. But we're intending those to be very large scale and, hopefully draw people from all over, not just our region, but the nation and beyond.
Yeah.
And then we'll do Surrender Day, October 17th, 250th of October 17th surrender. Next year in 2027, we'll aim to have a large scale event. And again, I'll let Lauren, sneak a peek at that over the days and months to come.
Yeah.
So that's our big show next year. But we're building this awareness and these assets. So hopefully, like I said, it's another generation that appreciates them.
Yep.
And another generation drawn to them. And that legacy continues.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate what you're doing. We've talked about it. Obviously, we've had many conversations about this on and off the air, but I think it's amazing what you guys are doing, and the whole, the campaign it's needed. I think, as far as that refresher for people, and kind of that for all of us to recommit to the values that make this country great and give us the ability to do all these things that we do.
Absolutely.
So.
Hip hip huzzah. That's right. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Bill. Really appreciate it. Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
And thanks for coming out to the farm, man. It's nice.
I love it.
Recorded out here since last August, I think. So
I'm glad I'm a repeat visitor.
Yeah, that's right.
Blue last time. I got red on today. It's a few degrees cooler.
It's maybe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for listening. Of course, you can find us at buyinglocal.us is our website, and we have our monthly publication coming out at the end of each month. Of course, podcasts are at Spotify, Apple, Rumble, and YouTube. Thanks for listening, everybody, and you'll hear from us next week.